Hi, this is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. Today I'm going to take a look at Comico's Grendel #1. This is the second series for Grendel. The first series was a 4-issue series, or hardcover, or backups, because it was all... Grendel I debuted in Primer #2, and then it was a backup in the Mage series, also by Matt Wagner. Then it was collected into a 4-issue series, and eventually redone into a hardcover. But this is the second series featuring the second Grendel. The first Grendel was Hunter Rose. He was a brilliant criminal who took over the New York City underground, and he was eventually killed by Argent, whom Argent was like a werewolf detective, and Hunter Rose crippled Argent, and Argent killed Hunter Rose. Now, so they already established there's like supernatural and superhero stuff in Grendel's world. So now this is set in the future, the near future, and this is Christine Spar. She becomes the new Grendel for reasons that you will see in the comic. She's the biographer of Hunter Rose, so she is kind of like obsessed with Grendel, as you could see, or at least very influenced by Grendel. So this is the opening page. This is Matt Wagner talking about the comic and it's a creation that he loves. This is Grendel, October 1986. Okay, this tells you when this takes place. This is Grendel's mask, and this is a weapon. He calls it a fork. It's a two-pronged like spear, and he could flick a button and it gets electrified. It has like a battery built in. So you can see this flying cars. All the science fiction really doesn't matter in this story. It's just to denote that it's in the future. So this is the New York Times building. She's like a reporter or a columnist, and she also just wrote a book about Grendel. This is her editor, Regina Anastasi, and this is the new hire. This is Colton Reese. I just hired a couple of days ago. He's starting out right under me till he gets the feel. So she's kind of like hitting on all her employees. Then this is Christine Spar. So Regina's kind of like a hound. They're shaking hands. The meeting, she's actually getting a little. She jumps in, a little blocking there. Doesn't want anybody else getting in on her new boy toy, and she's kind of amused by it. But whatever. Who cares about the details? I'm just going through the overall story. Oh, I skipped the credits. This is the credits, written and created by Matt Wagner. I showcased a Mage comic that was also by Matt Wagner. Just a phenomenal talent. Penciled by Arnold and Jacob Pander, the Pander brothers. Inked by Jay Geldof. Lettered by Steve Haney. Colored by Tom Vincent. Edited by Diana Schultz. Sorry, I skipped that out of order. So now we're back over here. I always found the coloring in this to be just a little too sharp, a little too pastel. But it was 1986. I guess that was the stereotypical palette back in 1986. And it's also kind of sparse backgrounds. Borderline amateurish, if you ask me, but I love the cartoony style of the Pander brothers, so that kind of makes up for it. And I think the paper quality is really good, and I think the paper quality makes the coloring a little bit more pronounced, a little bit more vivid than I'm used to in comic books. Because at this point, most of the comics are still a newsprint, which seems to absorb the ink more, and it kind of dulls the colors. So that's why whenever you see an old newsprint comic reprinted in better quality paper, to me the colors just are way too bright, and it just doesn't work. So here she's taken her new hire, and the guy she's flirting with, out, and she's inviting Christine to the Kabuki theater. So here they are going to the Kabuki, Radio City Music Hall, seeing some Kabuki. And this is Christine's son, and I think the father shows up later on in the series, but as of right now the father's a non-entity. It doesn't matter. So she's waving down and whatever, going through the crowd, and here's the little boy. How long you gonna last? Yeah, what does he mean by that? He means I'm a very strict boss. That you are. So she covered for her. He basically means you always kick out guys when you get tired of them. The little kid's kind of saying the truth too boldly. So here the kabuki dancers, and she's like, wow, what, he's hot, blah 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 blah, and they're talking a little bit about Tujuro. That's the kabuki artist's name, and she's like, you ever slept with a Chinese guy? And she goes, well, kabuki's Japanese. He goes, yeah, but Tujuro's Chinese. Okay, so even though it's a Japanese art form, we have a Chinese artist. She's like, well, I don't know, I can't see anything through the makeup. And she's like, so I'll pass. She goes, well, so take off the getup. I think he's kind of yummy. So she's a hound, like I already said. So now she uses her influence as an editor at the New York Times to go backstage. And he's like, gets her name wrong, and then look at this creepy maneuver. I remember this, even though I haven't opened up this comic in over 20 years. He shakes Christine's hand, and then he just licks her finger, and she's like, the shock lines coming out of her eyes. Look at that panel. That's a pretty cool panel. That reminds me of like a Roy Lichtenstein. And then the kid's a little freaked out, and Tujuro plucks out a hair. So this guy's being a real creep, and she's like, what's wrong? He goes, it must have been a mosquito or something. So they all say goodbye. I'm a night person, and I tend to sleep very late. So look, he's got the kid's hair. Okay, who is the Fisher King? Find out in Mage. Evil never looks so good. So this is the original Grendel, Hunter Rose. He was like this charming, dashing, Shakespeare-quoting, super villain genius. So now she's putting Anson to sleep. That's the kid's name, Anson. And what do you think? The show was weird, Colton was dumb, and I think Tujuro is whatever. And Anson, he was very freaky. Yeah, he was somewhat, but you don't need to say it like that. And it's Tujuro. He goes, okay, well, good night, Christine. Good night, babe. At a distance, Tujuro is admirable. So that's weird that he calls his mother Christine. And then look at this creep. He's licking the hair. And the kid wakes up and starts moving about. Is the babysitter. He sneaks out, and he's wearing a maid shirt. And then this guy meets him, and in the morning she comes home, where is he, blah blah blah. Anson, I'm home. She's getting ready for whatever it is. So, I guess bad mom, she doesn't notice the kid's missing yet. So here she is. I don't want to hell with your ethnic. My son is. Oh, so she did notice the kid's missing. This is the police. So she goes to the police. She's filling out a report. He goes, the very best I could do is post an APB. He said he's only been gone since morning. That's not very long. He might come home soon. So look, we'll start the bulletin. Yes, thank you very much. So she's freaking out. She's calling, like I said, she worked for the newspaper, reporter or columnist. She's calling in all her contacts. Oh, Johnny Questcott comic. This was a great comic. That was a really good comic. Robotech. I never got Robotech. Elementals 10. I can't find my Elementals. My comics are in more disarray than I had thought. I'm in the process of reorganizing them. So here we are. 1, 2, 3, the 5 panel. And I like how her head sticks out over across the gutter. So she's boozing it up. She's freaking out because she can't find her kid. She's like, you tanked. She's like, yep. Gets into a fight. So she's going to call her ex, and then her friend stops her from calling her ex. And so now by all accounts, Wednesday night I was morose drunk and most certainly incapable of any acts of larceny. Perfect. So here she is, and was Wednesday. Better still. And here she dresses up, and what is she doing? She beats up a security guard. She's going to the museum or the public library, beats up this poor guy who's just sitting there looking at a girly magazine, minding his own business. He gets wutted right on the head. Then she's going to kill him. So she already suspects that the kabuki artist has the kid. So here she goes. This is Hunter Rose Grendel was like super famous. He was like the Al Capone or whatever like that. So his artifacts are on display, his mask and his fork. She's obsessed with him. She's his biographer. She takes it. She gets a gun, shoots it when she leaves, sets off the alarms, and gets in the car and escapes. Just, so who knows? So she's dressed up as Grendel and this is Argent. Sniff, sniff, huh? So that's how it feels. The feeling of direction and cape, good. And we just announced my flight. More later. He is back. So Argent, for whatever supernatural reason, knows that Grendel is back. Even though it's a different person. The costume. So she's hot. Grendel. Subscribe today. This comic, like I said, was a big sensation. And I'm going to give you a spoiler. Because I thought it was revealed on the last page. Christine Spar lives in Manhattan with her son Anson. She's currently a staff reporter for the New York Times and is considered to be one of the world's foremost experts on Grendel and his history. Miss Spar is the widow of the correspondent Peter Spar. Okay, so she suspects the kabuki artist who is the kidnapper. We all saw that. He's also a vampire. So here he is. He dances at night and he feeds on young children. So his victim of choice is young blonde children. So he's even creepier than most vampires. She immediately suspects him. She dresses up as Grendel and goes after him. And it's a 12-issue series of them. This comic lasts 70 issues, but the first story was 12 issues. She fights. She gets her ass kicked because she's a human fighting a vampire, although she trains a lot. And then she kind of delves into this obsession and violence and aggression. And that's kind of like the theme of Grendel is human aggression, to the point where she's no better. She's out just trying to save her son. She's panicking and desperate. And she delves into like this obsession and madness and becomes a villain. Okay, I'm not going to spoil the ending, but I'll just tell you that the kabuki guy's a vampire. So she can't beat him at first. She has to get better and better and better. And in order to do that, she's like pulling on this aggression that this costume brings out. And as you can see, the werewolf was kind of linked to this. And it turned out later that like this becomes like a series of mini-series. Another person becomes Grendel after her. And it seems like the spirit of Hunter Rose kind of possesses whoever dresses up in the costume and descends into villainy. So that's what Grendel is she wasn't a bad person, and she ends up I don't want to say worse, because she's not going around feeding on children, but her soul is destroyed. And that's what Grendel does, is a soul crushing villain that possesses things. So this Matt Wagner, like, he jumps around at that. There was a Grendel from the past, like dinosaur times, Grendel in the future with like cybernetic beings running around going to other planets in a post-apocalypse world. But there's always like this spirit of Hunter Rose that infests somebody, and we watch them descend into aggression and madness. And that's Grendel. I think this was just a breakout comic. It was so good. It was a phenomenon for the first 12 issues. And as you can see, there was no other comics that came out. It was so 80s, like the pastel bright colors, the cartoony. Yeah, there was nothing like it. There was nothing else like it on the shelf. That's what I'll say definitely. And I thought it was great. I think you could get the first 12 issues collected if you want to, because Matt Wagner, this comic book company, the owner, whose name I can't remember, did some bad financial dealings, just poor decisions, and the company went under. And he took down most of the characters with him because he owned it. But whereas Matt was smart, he owned Grendel outright. So when Comico folded, Grendel kind of disappeared for a couple of years until Matt was able to, I don't know if he had to buy it back or pay off some debts or whatever, or solicit around. And then Dark Horse Comics kind of started publishing Grendel, and I think Dark Horse still is the home of Grendel today. But it's worth it. I've been collecting Grendel for like, I don't know, 20 years or so, but I got to say in the last 10 years I kind of let it go. I should look at the back issues and pick them up. But I pulled this out because I want to reread the series. It was so good. I very rarely reread comics these days, but this is one of them that I want to reread. So there you go. That's Grendel. Hope you enjoyed this. It's a fun comic. Bye-bye. Thank you for your time.